Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.
Friends, in this video for ithought Advisor, I'm going to talk to you on the topic valuing companies within a sector. Usually, we all want to buy a leader. But what happens? We are generally late in buying a leader. When you're late in buying a leader, what is the natural tendency? It's to look at the other companies in the same sector, maybe a number 2 or a number 3 or even lower. Some sectors are usually concentrated between 2 or 3 players, so that narrows the availability of options. To the basic question of why do we need number 2 and number 3? It's because we don't like the valuation of number 1. We have a fear of missing out on that sector. We don't want to overpay when we buy, and we also believe that what's good for number 1 in a sector will also be good for number 2 or number 3. But does it always work that way? In reality, many times number 1 in a sector, a leader, beats his immediate competition by miles significantly. When that happens, going and buying number 2 or number 3 may not give us the same result as buying a number 1. This keeps recurring in the modern times because the leader in many sectors tends to lead his competition by a mile. He leaves them behind. It's not also unusual that institutional investors in a sector gravitate more towards the leader, creating more scarcity in the stocks of the leader, thereby always helping the leader command a higher PE multiple. When we look at number 2 or number 3, what we are thinking is that a number 2 or a number 3 should also eventually get a PE ratio like a number 1. But the business fundamentals, the balance sheet, the valuation metrics of number 2 or number 3 in a sector tend to be significantly weaker or look distinctly softer than a leader. In that case, it would be very difficult for institutional investors to blindly pay the same valuation for a number 2 or a number 3 which they pay for a leader. So, our expectation that by buying a number 2 or a number 3 in a sector cheap, we would be able to make more profit than if we bought a leader generally gets very badly tested. Yet, it's a natural tendency for us to buy a cheaper stock. What I would think is a more balanced approach is weighing what we are paying for growth. If you are paying for a weaker balance sheet and softer growth in a number 2, and for a very strong cash flow driven balance sheet and a much higher growth trajectory in a number 1, then the choice would be to pay more for quality and get a better outcome, or pay less for a number 2 and compromise with what we get. Now, this compromise is something which I don't increasingly prefer as an investor. I feel that if you are going to invest in a sector, you need to bet without compromising on what you buy. I'm sure many of you have this thought process when you do your regular shopping for everything you need in life. You don't compromise on your personal needs. You don't compromise on your phones. You don't compromise on your cars, on your two-wheelers, on your travel. You mostly don't compromise. But when it comes to investing, you think there is a trade-off in compromising. You think there is a benefit in compromising, but eventually that compromise doesn't justify all your effort and sometimes even what you pay. Because you are going to make one decision in a sector, and that decision has to have a very high quality without a compromise. So when you look at a sector and you are weighing the idea of buying a number 2 and number 3 against buying a leader, if you can get that leader at a reasonable valuation, I would go with the leader. Only if the number 2 or the number 3 has a chance of improving his metrics significantly and showing dramatically better financial performance, would I go for a number 2 or a number 3? That in essence is how I would view investing in a sector and choosing between a leader and the immediate number 2 and number 3. Thank you for watching this video.